You see a gas station for sale online for $30,000 or a yogurt shop for $40,000. Here is a dessert shop in a busy mall in San Bernardino for $29,000. The owner paid $400,000 to start this business. They really should have called Franchise City. Now, are these businesses really the bargain they claim to be, and what do buyers need to look for when buying an existing business? Obviously, the first thing you want to look at is financials, and most owners should be willing to give you 3 years of earnings. Now, the problem with financials is that most people don't really know how to read them, and even if you do, there are many creative ways that owners can present the numbers so they look good. Now, if the seller is unloading the business for $40,000, they paid $400,000, and they're claiming to be profitable, that's definitely a red flag. Next up is undisclosed cash benefits. So you're looking at a business, the owner winks at you and tells you the business makes much more money than they're disclosing. So the owner claims that he puts at least $1,000 a week cash into his pocket that he's not telling the government about. Now, liquor, convenience stores, they're notorious for this. So firstly, is this deal that's already shady something you want to continue knowing that you're going to have to keep breaking the law to make money? Now, if so, you can make an offer conditional on verification of income. Ask to work in the store with the owner for a week or two. Now, if they refuse, they're likely exaggerating the earnings. If so, you can stay there, watch the money coming in over a week or two, validate if what they're saying is true. Is this an asset or share sale? So when you buy a business, it can be either a share sale. This is where you're buying everything, the entire company, the name, the history, and also, you've got to keep this in mind, the liabilities. Or is it an asset sale where you are simply purchasing the assets? Now, from a buyer's perspective, the asset sale is much safer because the original business and all of its liabilities cease to exist when you take over. You are starting a brand new business from scratch. Now, a share sale, which is often preferred by sellers due to the tax advantages like capital gains exemptions, means that you're also going to inherit any of the outstanding liabilities. And that could be debts to suppliers or employees. Could also even be lawsuits. And I'll give you an example. You buy a construction company and they built a deck 5 years ago. That deck collapses and it injures 5 people after you own the business. Now, unless you got a letter of indemnity, if you bought the entire company in a share sale, you're going to be liable for anything that happened while that business was operating. Now, in some cases, like a licensed restaurant or a nightclub where the local government is only approving a limited number of licenses every single year, you might have to do a share sale to keep that business name and to actually keep that license. But keep in mind that you're going to be keeping and inheriting all the debts and liabilities. And we covered this topic in greater detail in our top 3 dangers of buying a business with no money down. I'm going to put that video link above on this side and also at the end of the video. Also important is to check the customer base. Now, if the business you're buying has 90% of its revenue coming from one single customer and you lose that customer, there goes your business. And some sellers, when they hear that they might be losing this key contract in the future, they're going to try and dump the business. So first, determine the customer base. If it's top heavy, just over a few limited number of customers, realize that you're going to be very exposed if you lose those contracts. It's much better if your customer base is spread out over numerous customers. Next up is a non-compete agreement. And this is a document that states the owner is not going to engage in the same type of business within a certain period of time. Now, this is very important with an online business. So if you buy this business and the owner, who knows exactly how they built the business, they know exactly who the customer base is, they know every bit and piece of that business, and they now become your competition, that's going to have a major negative impact on your revenue. So if a seller is not willing to sign a reasonable non-compete, that can definitely be a red flag. Next, you want to check the employees. So what is their tenure? how long they've been there, what's the turnover, what's the attrition. Look at how long the employees typically stay and ask yourself if that's the type of business model that you are interested in operating. And certain industries have much higher attrition and much higher level of difficulty in hiring and retaining employees. For example, nurses and caregivers, they are at a premium right now. The Bureau of Labor estimates that these jobs are going to be in the highest demand over the coming decade. Also keep in mind, minimum wage employees are always going to be a revolving door. Sometimes when a business is for sale, you might see that a key employee like a manager or director has recently left or is going to leave and can actually be the reason for the sale. And while historical financial data might look strong, without this key employee in place, it could be much less. Next up, things to consider: accounts receivable. So in many businesses, there's going to be money that's still owed to the business when you take over. So you have to ask, will you be responsible for collecting those debts? If so, keep in mind some of those customers are likely to not pay. So you should always discount that amount when you're making the offer. Always check the rent or lease. So when does the lease expire, and is the landlord willing to extend the lease? If so, at what price? So sometimes when owners are notified by their landlord of a big pending rent increase, they realize they're not going to be so profitable anymore, and they decide instead to sell the business. So rent right now, hey, it looks great. It's $4,000 a month. But what if it goes up to $8,000 a month when you take over? You need to find that out by speaking with the leasing agent or the landlord and see if there's any planned increases when you take over or in the future. Next up is training. Is that provided by the owner? Are they going to stay on for a couple of months or so to help you ramp up? As part of the offer, you can actually agree and have it in writing to have the owner stay on for a period of time, depending on the type of business, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, whatever. Now, if an owner is going to stick around for a few weeks by your side, it's likely they're not going to do anything overly malicious, but you never know. Get it in writing that the owner agrees to stay on to get you ramped up. And if they're not willing to do so, that's a bit of a red flag. Next, you need to look at licensing. So are there licenses that you'll need to operate this business? And do these licenses transfer to the new owner? So some states and some industries have very onerous legal oversight that can take months to acquire a license, if you get one at all. Industries like construction, senior care, real estate, and others all have these specific licenses that are required beyond your standard business license. Always make sure that you're going to get these licenses or are able to get them in the future. Next, is the business highly dependent on the personality and skills of the owner? So with the business you're buying, is the owner a much loved or admired figure in the community? Where a new owner might be hard-pressed to fill those shoes. Also, what are the functions of the owner? Do they have to cold call every single day to drive the business forward? Do they have to reach out and network in the community? And if so, are you comfortable performing those functions? Always good to job shadow for a week or two to see exactly what's required, and to make sure that this is something you're comfortable and capable of doing. Always check online reviews, and this is a big problem when buying a distressed business, bargain basement sale, as they usually have terrible reviews. So just Google the company name, the address, and see what comes up. If Yelp and other review sites are 1 or 2 stars, realize that you're going to be starting by having to dig yourself out of a hole, and that can be difficult. Also check nearby openings. So some sellers may have discovered that they will be having a competitor opening up nearby that will invariably have a negative impact on sales. You can check with the local licensing office and see if any businesses are slated to open nearby. So those are just a few things, and there are a lot more to watch for when buying a business, and it can sometimes make sense to start a franchise or business from scratch. Start a brand new business rather than trying to dig out of a hole that's been created by poor management of that business. Negative reviews, negative local public sentiment are very difficult to overcome. Now, if you need help finding a franchise, Franchise City has resale businesses as well as new opportunities listed. You can visit us at www.franchise.city. Yes, that's .city, not .com. I'll put the link to the top 3 dangers when buying a business right here. Things to watch for when buying a gas station down here below. Please like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.
Franchise City, a better way to buy franchise.